The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Ruthy, your podcast on Heart to Heart with Herne was so well received that I had to have you back on. How you doing?
Oh my gosh, Mike, I am doing great. I'm doing great. I think, a couple years older than that one, and that's beginning to show, but we're not going to talk about that because we're not here to talk about that. No. We're just going to talk about other fun stuff.
Now, during the last podcast, did you leave a family member off there? I remember this one daughter of yours.
You know, Beth is always at the top of my list. And I was given a reminder today that I have forgotten her in the past. And we're not going to illuminate the list of times that this poor child has been forgotten. Wait, let's do that, because that's actually even more fun. Because there was once when we were at a grocery store, and as I was pulling away, there's a little 9-year-old staring at me as I'm driving my station wagon out of the parking lot. And then there was one time when it was the town hall, but we live just a mile from there. And when you're 11 years old, you can walk a mile, right? When your mother forgets you. And then, of course, there was the podcast. And so every now and again, you know, I'm getting older. I forget things. And luckily, Beth Jameson is very forgiving, because I promised I wouldn't forget her this time.
Well, you didn't. We did it right off the bat, so there's no chance to forget. You know, and even if, you know, you left her here, you left her there, you did make her much more independent growing up.
Oh, my stars. It is survival of the fittest. You know, all the while I was doing daycare, people would call it baby survivor. There was a reason for that. There was a very good reason for that. But if babies are going to grow big and strong and be big and brave and bold, they need to be able to have some freedom to do that. So I stand by my ways of doing things. I think they worked marvelously well.
Now, for those of you that may have not have seen the first podcast, just give me a quick rundown of the kids in your family.
Well, I married my high school sweetheart, Dave Blodgett. And I've had 52 years to rethink that decision, but no, we're there. We've got it. We've got 6 wonderful kids, and I kind of stole my sister's daughter as well, and a whole bunch of other people's kids that we've helped raise, because we absolutely love having family around. So we have Sarah, Matt, Seth, Beth, Zach, and Luke. And do not ask me why there is a Seth and a Beth back to back, because that was an incredibly grievous mistake that I never considered, because it was Bethany, and never thought of how the entire world's going to have Seth and Beth. And I was like, okay, that was dumb. But other than that, you know, we did okay. Sure. 6 great kids, 14 grandkids. Amanda is the slightly stolen daughter. I share her with my sister.
Okay. That's great. Well, today I wanted to talk more about writing, because I felt we were in so much into your family and everything.
Oh, we kind of got a little off track.
It's okay.
With the whole family fun, Hilton farm, all that fun stuff. So yes, I am a published author. I've written over 70 novels and novellas that have been published. That was my lifelong dream. I always believed that was what God meant me to be. And if it was supposed to happen, that it would happen in his time. And there were many thwarted efforts, and it still took 8 years from the time I sat down at oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this, a Brother word processor. So no computer things at all. Nothing. There was no internet or anything. But then shortly thereafter, my husband's cousins, Todd and Danny Danny Ann, gave me a little computer to put in the house. I got AOL. I was that cool. You've got mail. And that was in 2001, in that area, 2001, 2000. And it still took me 8.5 years to get a publishing contract, but it was 8.5 years of taking care of kids and writing books and learning the trade. And I learned a lot. I never quit.
So when you said 8.5 years to get published, what were you doing during those 8.5 years? How many novels or novellas were you working on?
That is such a good question. So I was raw. I mean, what I thought was great writing initially turned out to be nothing that anybody would publish in this century. Let me just put it that way. Maybe I was channeling my Charles Dickens. A lot of words. I have a lot of words, and I use them all the time. So by the time I got published, I had, probably 11 novels finished. And at that time, I knew some of them were good enough. But when I got the call from a wonderful editor at Love Inspired, Melissa Endlick, when I got that call, she also said to me, I know that you've got things that we had not accepted before. I would like to see them. And that became a 6-book contract. So that first acceptance became 6 books, and then 4 books, and then 6 books, and it just kept growing from there. The motto of that story is whatever you're doing, don't quit. The contracts and the awards don't go to the people who are necessarily the most talented. They go to the people who don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in sports. You can see that in academics. You can see that across the board. Just don't quit. Keep going. Sharpen your pencils, learn how to attract an audience in whatever it is you're doing, but stick with it.
Now, you said that you felt you were raw. You had a lot of words. And then when
I was right.
Okay. When you got, I guess, rejected a little bit, who
A
was
lot.
rejecting that? Was that the editors?
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
how did you handle constructive criticism?
Oh, like anybody, I sat there and cried in my beer. Well, I don't drink beer, so there you go. But no, I mean, every rejection was like a stab in the heart. I'm not going to pretend that, there isn't that hope. But I learned as I was getting those rejections, what they were looking for. On some of them, most of the rejections are simply, I'm sorry, this is not suited for us at this time. And you would be like, okay, well, that tells me nothing. But in that time, because romance authors and romance books were flourishing, there were lots and lots of them being published in various arenas, not so many in the inspirational and Christian arena. And that was the market I was targeting. So in that time, there were writing contests, and I entered them voraciously. So it cost money. This was before everything was done digitally. We're talking in 2000, let's say 4 and 5 and 6. And I knew my writing was getting better, but more importantly, my storytelling was getting better. I was learning how to start a story, go through the middle, which is always every author's hardest part, and come to that ending, happy or not, but I like happy endings. I'm a hopeless optimist who is really a realist at heart. I have to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
And those writing contests give feedback. So the women or men that are judging the contests are asked to jot notes in the manuscript. Mind you, again, paper manuscripts. You weren't sending anything in digitally. Mm-hmm. So you would send that in. You would wait for the contest to be all judged, and then they would send things back. And over those first 2 years of entering all those contests, I was starting to see where I was messing up, where it was attracting people. And it's funny. I'm going to tell you this story because it was funny, although at the time I was like, oh, my stars, what is the matter with you? So I entered a contest that was done. I'm not going to mention which state it was in, but it was their state writing contest. And I got this scathing critique from this woman who said, I really think you overuse big words. I don't think your audience needs to know how intelligent you are. I think if you spoke more simply and, put in small words instead of big words, you would be more attractive to your audience. And I thought, first, girl, get a freaking dictionary, go back to school, because I don't think I used any words ubiquitously. I think actually that you maybe should have not judged this contest. But of course I didn't say that. And I'm not really saying that here because nobody knows who it was or where it was. But that was funny because you realize you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And there's a lot of authors out there. Some I love, some I are not anything that I would read. That's okay. There are 300 million people in this country. In the English speaking world, there's a whole lot more. There's a big audience. So you find your niche and you direct toward that and expand. So lots of rejections, Mike, from editors, from agents. Oh, it was so hard to find an agent. So hard. And it wasn't until I got a nod from an editor because of a contest. And then I called an agent and said, hey, they've got a contract they're offering to me for 6 books. Are you interested? And of course, then an agent's interested.
Right.
That was easy. But that's funny because I got the contract before I got the agent. An interesting thing from this agent who said, interestingly, reading this manuscript, which went on to be an award-winning manuscript, reading this manuscript, I found that it was gerund heavy.
You're going to have to help me with that. What's that mean?
Okay, so words ending in ing, giving, having, verbs. And I was like, okay, well, they're taking it and they're paying me for it. So that was funny. Because I had to stop and think, gerund heavy. Okay. So yeah, interesting stuff.
So when you got that first contract offer and then you got the agent, did you accept that monetary figure that they gave you, or is there negotiation?
No, we went straight to auction on Fifth Avenue, and no, of course I accepted it. This is
I know business.
This is so funny because every time I'm going to just say that when people see like there's these wonderful Hallmark movies, inspirational movies where you have all kinds of things going on and the writer gets a contract and immediately they're doing a book tour. No, this is not how it happens. You fight in the trenches for every little bit that you get and you're happy with it, at least at that time, because you've got to step in the door before, you can go up the stairs. And I was fine with that. I had enough confidence in myself, my abilities, my storytelling, that I thought, I love writing category romances for Love Inspired. We had so much fun together and I wrote over 30 of them and they took good care of me. I have no regrets about that. They're slightly shorter books, 55, 60,000 words. And the only reason I stopped doing those had nothing to do with the people I was working with or the books. It was some very woke policies that came about in 2019 and 20, where they were not letting authors write people of color. You weren't allowed to kind of step outside your physiological and ethnic block. And I've never done that. I've always had all kinds of people because it's my family, right? That's how I live my life. So at that point, I thought, you know what, if I have to not use the kinds of characters that I think normal people would come to, the kind of people that are sitting next to you in church or that you've got next door or that you're running into at the coffee shop or at the public market, I'm just going to pause that and do some independent stuff. But then I got tagged for a whole bunch of Guidepost mysteries, and I had a ball doing those and got to use all kinds of people in the mysteries. So that things work out. If you have that faith in God, that strength of your faith, believe that things will work out. And every time I've taken a little leap off of cliff, he's caught me.
Mm-hmm.
So things work out. They go fine.
Anytime that faith was tested and you...
Oh, not as far as my writing. We talked a little the last time about my mom. My mother was an amazing author, amazing writer. But she was also plagued by mental illness, what we believe was undiagnosed bipolar syndrome, because we went through the full on alcoholic problems, the major depressions where I wouldn't see her for months. Very, very sad, very sad. And when she got to that point in her life, I was still a very young child, and I didn't know her sober until I was in my 30s. So that was over 25 years of never knowing what an amazing person she was until I was in my 30s and had a family of my own, and she stopped drinking. So we had a good 10 years together, but her talent as an author was amazing. I have some of her writings from high school, and they're poignant, beautiful, wordsmithed like an expert. So that I know where the talent comes from. She did not have the opportunities that I had, but also she did not have, I'm going to call it the backbone or that faith that, no, if you just keep going, you can do things. But she was in a different time, a different time. That she was almost 40 when I was born. At 40 years is a big difference for women. She was born in 1918. And I mean, you look at women today who are born in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. We're a different sort, a different sort. We stand our ground. We do what we need to do. You're raising families, working, running to soccer games, running to practices, running to basketball, cleaning house. There's a lot going on that wasn't necessarily going on back then, but women have had to learn to stand their ground. And I'm fine with that.
So you were talking earlier about you learned when you messed up, and then you learned what people are attracted to in your writing.
Yeah.
What was that initially, and has that changed throughout the years?
Gosh, I think how I handle it has changed. I don't know that the reader's response is necessarily different, because now I've been able to go into bigger, longer books, so I can kind of stretch out the story a bit, give it more of more depth, more fun with the characters. Give them more back and forth time. It does not have to be fit into that 55,000 word envelope. And the funny thing is, sometimes it's easier to write a whole story as a novella in 30,000 words than it is to do it under those constrictions in 55,000 words. It probably sounds odd, but I know there's probably writers out there that'll be, yeah, I think it's like writing song lyrics. I am amazed by how people can put words that are so poignant and beautiful and tell a story in 16 bars. That just astounds me, because there are songs out there that just grab my heart and hold my soul, and they do it in that length of time. I get a whole book, but then I have to kind of think through that whole book and make sure that I'm not just filling it in with stupid stuff or AI. I have never used AI for my writings. I know that is becoming something that there are authors out there doing and producing books in crazy fast time. And as AI gets better, I'm not going to say that those books aren't up to snuff. I don't know. I would have to read them, but mine are all Ruthy created. Yeah. So back to what you said, how did I know what was drawing people
Right.
or attracting
Attractive.
them. Humor, you got to have some fun, right? And romance, if there isn't some, first you want that sexual tension, but also just that tension of people who are maybe coming at things from very opposite or diametrically opposed points of life. And you want that to be strong enough to be the reason why they don't just go and have coffee and decide to get married 3 weeks later. Because that's not a story. That's not a story. There was and I cannot remember who this is. I apologize. But he was doing a conference that I was at, and he was talking about, now, if Liam Neeson had gone to Europe to get his daughter. What was that? Was that movie Taken? I think it was Taken.
I think so.
So he goes to get his daughter. He says, so if he gets there and the daughter's waiting in the hotel, story over.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not. So now your story goes into all the depths of where she might be, who has her. He said, so you can't solve the mystery or the problems or the antagonism too quickly. So then I just kind of learned to have fun dragging it out. Let them have some fun. Let them spar a little bit. Let them be normal. That's, I think, a fun thing to do. But also, when you're working on those longer books, I get to have that interaction with other characters, whether they're family or friends, colleagues, coworkers, enemies, weird people in the town. Just so you know, everybody in Hilton, I have not put any of you in books. Okay, that's a lie. But I'm not going to tell you who, because it's always been good. That might also be a lie. But whatever. You see people doing something and you think, what if? And you turn the situation around in your head. So I'm not really putting them in the book unless they've annoyed me.
Mm-hmm.
If they have annoyed me to a certain level, they're probably going in a book under a different name, different description. And if it's a boy, it's probably going to be a girl, and vice versa. So they never realize who it is. But that's my therapy, Mike, because I don't have to go to a therapist and pay them or, use my Medicare. I can just write about things, and I am my own therapist. I think that's pretty cool.
Do you keep a journal or a diary?
No, I do not.
Okay. One of the
That's
questions.
like work, Mike. It's like work.
One of the questions: do you write more dialogue or description or?
Well, so that was my big mistake initially. Was I went to my first authors meeting, which was a lovely local writers group here, and I went there thinking I was all that in a bag of chips because, like I said, confidence has never been a problem. And I knew I had talent, and I read to these sweet ladies who sat there and took it. God bless them, every one of them. 9 pages of me talking about this gentleman who had lost his wife and how he was feeling and dealing with his little daughter. And they just sat there, and I'm sure in their heads they're thinking, oh my God, will she ever shut up? And eventually I did. And they're like, Ruth, you know what? That's great. You're talented. You need dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first comeuppance. And I learned to put lots of back and forth rather than tell a story, show it. Let your people show it for you. So I try to do that as much as possible. I mean, you've got to have some description in there.
Mm-hmm.
Dickens wasn't all wrong. He just went on forever and ever and ever. And I have an entire collection of Dickens, so I can say that because I really like Charles Dickens. But that kind of writing these days is not going to get you a publisher and not going to get you an agent because things have changed. And you don't have to use, like that woman accused me of, an ubiquitous number of big words.
What other authors that you read when you were younger made an influence on you?
Oh my gosh. So that is such a good question. Let me just say that I still treasure and mostly have all of those coming of age books that meant a lot to me growing up. That list includes Where the Red Fern Grows, The Yearling, The Secret Garden, the book that influenced me the very most was one that I then finally bought a copy for each of my kids because I thought they will understand their mother better if I give them each this book. And it was called Understood Betsy. And it was by, I believe, Dorothy Canfield. And I believe then she got married. So I think there's a third name now. But anyway, I read this book. And this book was about a little girl who was with very overbearing, very over anxious, very worried great aunt and aunt. And she was living with them, and she was Elizabeth Ann. And everything was very, very proper. Their home was proper. Everything they did was proper. She was very coddled. She was very sheltered. Nothing could ever interfere with Elizabeth Ann's life. And she just was sickly, never could go and just play with children because she was not strong. But then the great aunt got sick, and the aunt said, I need to take mother away. So she asked the country cousins to take in Elizabeth Ann, and they did. So there was this wonderful cast of characters, and the one that I just gravitated to was Cousin Ann. Cousin Ann was common sense, not much nonsense, get the job done, work hard, go for, set your goals, go for them, and just amazingly sensible in everything she did, but quietly loving. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's who I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a Cousin Ann. I want to be that person that can just set that tone and move forward. And of course, Elizabeth Ann turns into Betsy. She turns into this little country girl that isn't afraid to get dirty, isn't afraid to go through mud puddles, isn't afraid to walk other kids back and forth to the school, isn't afraid to makes her first batch of applesauce, and is very impressed when it takes a full cup of sugar to sweeten it. And the whole thing is about Betsy growing into the person she was meant to be and couldn't be because the aged aunts were so smothering. And that just said to me, that is like the perfect setup for a story. You have the conflict, you have the problem, you have Betsy having to go and live with these people and she's scared to death. And you have that whole thing turn around to be in her best interest. And the two aunts, and I cannot remember the other aunt's name, if it was Dorothy or Abigail, but so Cousin Ann and her mother, and there was an uncle, I believe there, maybe an Uncle Frank, but Cousin Ann was the big character. And it just showed that the right influence, you can do amazing things with children. And that is a lesson I took into motherhood, grandmotherhood, my daycare, working with all kinds of kids, is give them enough rope to hang themselves, then don't let them hang themselves. Give them that common sense.
It's a great theme, great lesson.
Yeah. So all of those coming of age books, as I said, they are still on my shelves. I think one of the grown-up books, though, that I liked exceedingly well was one by Deborah Smith. Deborah Smith is a very talented romance author, not inspirational. And but her books, her writing, wonderfully well done. And I had read, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. Is it Sweet Hush? I think it's Sweet Hush. Anyway, Hush Thackeray is the main character, and Sweet Hush is the apple that was named after their family, because in every generation, one woman was, I believe, named Hush. So it's a funny name. They're Southern, they're growing apples, they're doing all this stuff. And it was, again, a story about this woman who faced really rough odds with her husband, and he ended up high-speed chase, stupid, probably drunk, in the hills of, was it Georgia? Might have been Georgia. And ends up killing himself in an accident. She's raising their son, running this big apple farm, running everything, and just trying to keep all of his secrets secret. And that's a theme that I've used in a number of books, because I think every family, every town has secrets. In fact, there's a brand new series that I'm just working on, a proposal now. And the theme is small town secrets, because there's no place that doesn't have secrets, and those secrets can come back to bite you. So Sweet Hush was just a wonderful book. And it's funny because I think sometimes it doesn't have to be an author's best work for you to think it's her best, because I think it's what touches you based on the story elements. And I have found this to be true with readers, that when they read a specific story, Winter's End, my first published novel, is set in the North Country. And it's about, again, a young woman who just wants to have a normal life, just wants to be normal. She's now a nurse. She's a hospice nurse. She wants to get out of the North Country. She wants to move, but she had pledged a certain number of years in return for schooling help to stay in the North Country. And she's there taking care of people who are dying. And that book has still gotten me people sending me messages, because if you've ever gone through a hospice experience, that book touches your heart, just because you reflected that same experience that this character is going through. So I think that as a writer, the more I keep my stories on real issues, real people, real happenings, I think that draws them in. And there's nothing like getting those notes that say, I could not put it down. I skipped my housework. I almost wanted to call in for work, but I need money. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Or the people that say, I started reading really, really slowly because I don't want this to end. And what a wonderful compliment that is. What a blessing. I told you I had a lot of words.
Yes, you did. When you go to write a book, do you think more plot driven or character driven?
Always character driven.
Okay. Always
character driven. And it's that way for me. And this is not for every writer. We are all distinctly different. And I would call myself a pantser. So seat in my pants, but also with a plot, because I want to know where the story's going. But I don't plot it all out. That's way too much work. Way too much work. But once I know my characters, what he's like, what he's up to, what is his past, why is he like this? Same for her. Why is she making these decisions? Why doesn't she why doesn't she just get up and go where she wants to go? Why is she putting herself through this? And there's always a reason. And once you have those reasons, then it becomes, I'm going to use this, and I don't know if other authors will see it the same way, but very scientific in that it's an action-reaction sequence. She's going to do something, act. He's going to react, and that's going to spur the next scene. Because however his reaction is, in character with who he is, what he's doing, why he's being a jerk, or why he's amazingly helpful and she doesn't want any help. She's spurning that help and like, no, get away. That's all based on who they are. Those character arcs that people love to talk about. Don't know what those character arcs are. I just know that certain people are going to act certain ways. And again, I might take those from people I meet. It's entirely possible.
So you also said you write mysteries?
So this was funny because in the middle of doing several other things, I got a call from a wonderful editor. And she said, Ruthy, I'd like you to do a mystery for Guideposts. And I was like, okay, well, first, I've never done a mystery. I don't think I'm smart enough to write a mystery. And what made you think of this? And she said, well, you did write a mystery. You wrote one for Love Inspired. She said, you were part of the Big Sky, Montana series, and that was an ongoing serial mystery. And I said, yeah, but I didn't think of that as a mystery. And she said, well, it was. And I read it, and we would like to have you on board with this project. And I was like, Okay, that's exciting and scary as heck. And I said, give me a few hours to think about it. Let me talk to my agent. Let me see. I said, what kind of time frame are you looking at? And she said, well, you could either jump in and do book one, and therefore I would need a reconstructed chapter one by tomorrow at I can't remember what time she gave me, but it was by tomorrow. She said, or the next day. I can give you to the next day. She said, or you can come in at book three. And I looked at my schedule because I always have a writing schedule for the next year and 2 years so that I can see, when I have things due, when I have to, because once you're in the groove, Mike, you have so you send the manuscript in, but that's just the beginning because then they're going to send you back edits. They may ask for a total revision. First time I got that, I almost burst into tears because I thought, oh, they're not going to like me. They must hate me. No, sometimes they just don't like the way the story went. And so you revise it. So then you do your revisions or your edits, you send those back. Then they come back with more. And then you fix those and send those back. Well, then they go into final edits. So now you've gone through this book a number of times, and it's sometimes your mind starts filling in the spaces where you think you've said something because at one point you did, and then that got edited out. So it's funny because you've got now 4 versions of the same book in your head as you're working. So then you do those final edits. It's the comb through, and you keep your changes very, very minimal at that point in time. And then they publish the book. This process can take, depending on the publisher, any place from 6 months to 18 months. In between times, you should not be sitting around waiting for those things to come back. You should be writing more books because if you want an income stream coming in, you need to produce product and same kind of thing. So you learn to juggle all of those things. So I looked at my calendar and I said, well, you know what? I called her back, said, you know what? I have 3 weeks right now where I am waiting on edits for one book. My next proposal is not due in for 7 weeks. And I said, if you want me for book one, let's jump on that right now. And we did. And it was for the Mysteries of Martha's Vineyard. And it was a great series. And I ended up doing 4 books for that series. It's a series of 24 books, and I did 4 of them. And it was absolutely wonderful and sold like crazy. So it was good. And then I worked on 4 or 5 other series with Guideposts. I'm trying to think of the different ones. So probably between 20 and 22 books with Guideposts, the mysteries, and fun, wonderful reads. People enjoy them. They're cozy mysteries. So no big, there aren't dead bodies hanging around. But they're fun. They're fun to do.
Do you start with, what the solution is?
Yeah.
The mystery?
Yeah, you have to. At least I have to. So in my head, when I'm doing a mystery, I reverse the process. I know the absolute ending because I have to know where I'm going to come out because I have to know how to make them get there. Whereas with a happy ending romance or an inspirational that's more women's fiction, I've got more latitude. So I can have things happen toward the end that aren't necessarily something I know about it initially. But in the mystery, I have to know who did it, who done it, because then I have to set that up with, minor foreshadowing. You don't want to give it away. You just have to make sure that the plausible things are in plausible places so that people, when they look back, can say, oh, I should have caught that. Oh, I should have seen that. But you don't want them to see it. You want it there. But then some people love to figure it out, and they do. That's fine.
So you're talking about that you write inspirational books too? Or how did you describe that? Christian inspirational?
Yes. So okay. Every publisher or every book that I have written, could be classified as inspirational Christian fiction or romance. So they're all inspirational. They all have a wonderful worldview of faith and God, and not generally under the banner of any particular religion. I am a practicing Catholic and I love my parish. Shout out to Parish of the Holy Family up on Lyle Road, the old St. Jude's, wonderful place. Father Leap is amazing, and so many nice people. But yeah, I'm very happy with that. And an American Pope, let
I
me
was just going to
just
say,
say,
congrats on the Pope,
oh
too.
my goodness, and what an interesting person he seems to be, from the early times of life, from, going from Chicago to Philadelphia. So you've got two interesting city lives going on there, Villanova, and then onto the priesthood, onto being a priest, then a missionary. And I think he would be very easy to talk to. I'm not saying that we would necessarily agree on everything. I don't agree with anybody on everything, including the Catholic Church. But I think it is very important to have good shepherds in your walks of faith, whether they're male or female. The Sisters of St. Joseph, and I know I said this on the first podcast, were hugely instrumental to me growing up because my life was so dysfunctional. Those women, several of them, and the staff at Sacred Heart School and then Nazareth Academy, where I went until I was a sophomore, and then I moved out to Hilton. They had an amazing influence on me, encouraging me. I mean, I was the dirty kid in class, the smelly kid in class. That's how it was. But they were kind. They appreciated that I tried hard, and I did not have my mother's brilliance, because she and several of my siblings are just crazy smart. But I had the tenacity to work hard and wanting to get things done and wanting to shine. And they recognized that. So to this day, every month I make sure that I donate to the Sisters of St. Joseph, their ministries, which are out in the streets of Rochester or down in Selma, Alabama, and Brazil. These women have given their lives to service, and those lives touched me. So it's important for me to be able to reach back and give back, because they made a difference. So yeah. So shout out to Parish of the Holy Family there and the Catholic Church. But when you're writing books, the publishers want them to be non-denominational, so they can be ecumenical. So you could be talking about anybody in any church, in any faith. So I don't call services mass. I call them services. We don't generally use priests, except in Refuge of the Heart, which was specifically done for a Catholic publisher, Franciscan Media, because it was a church with a priest that sponsored the refugee who came over here to live in America. So that was one of the rare instances, though. Mostly they're done to be non-denominational.
A lot of it, your writing seems to be coming through that faith in God. Did that just
Absolutely
come through naturally?
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
Right.
I hope that when you're writing this stuff, that you're living it, that it's part of you, that it's ingrained in you. So, and again, I will tell you honestly, that is not always the case. Good writers can come off like good actors and actresses, and they can pull all the right words out of the air. But in my case, I certainly hope that I am writing exactly the way I feel about how amazing faith is, how it becomes your stronghold, how no matter what else happens, if you have that faith, if you are rooted in the beauty of the Bible, of Jesus's sacrifice, if you can look at all of that and not be touched by it, I find that more amazing than people believing that a crucified man, God, rose up from the grave and died for our sins, because it's Jesus. So yeah, I hope that my faith bleeds through. However, I hope that it is also not preachy, because that's annoying. Not know it all, because same. That it comes through organically. And for lots of times, my characters have no faith when they start the book. And I am not a person that does conversion stories. Are you familiar with conversion stories?
No.
Okay. So conversion stories. And if there are any, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if there are any evangelicals out there that are going to smack me down for this, please understand, it's not that I don't like conversion stories, it's that it's not me. So conversion,
I think I know what you're going to go ahead and explain.
Yeah. So basically it is where the person comes to a point in the book where they are just openly converting and giving their life to Jesus, maybe dropping on their knees, maybe not, but just that openness of, I accept you, Christ, in my life. And I think while those can be very touching and beautiful, that is not how I generally see it happening among people I know, people I don't know, people who are dying. It happens differently. And that's how I try to reflect it in my stories and in my writing, is how I've seen people whose faith is either charred or damaged or non-existent come back to it. And it's not usually in a big conversion scene. It's usually in a step-by-step, knock your head against the wall and finally have your eyes opened and realize, this is what they meant all along, kind of thing. So, and I get that that's different for different people and different authors. I'm comfortable that way. It works for me, and it definitely works for my readers.
Thank you for the explanation.
There you go. I told you, lots of words.
Can you spot someone who's not writing naturally with faith in God, and it's more of an, I forget the word you used.
No. I mean, if they're bad, yes. No. There are, as I said, some very skilled authors out there who write what they write, but it is not necessarily based on their lives or how they live. And I've seen people garner contracts for books that are beautifully done, and under another name, they're writing really heavy sex stuff for some other publisher, but it's under a different name. So now, again, this is not me being judgmental, because I'm not the book police. They can write whatever they want. Do I think that you can be writing hot and heavy, crazy, almost pornographic sex scenes for XYZ publisher over here and writing beautiful, overcoming terrible life realities over here with a beautiful message of faith, and have those two things jive in your head that they're both okay? I have a problem. I would have a problem with it. I could not do this and this. Now, again, that's not me being judgmental. But in any part of life, things are not always what they seem, right? I mean, that I think we're kind of maybe a little naive if we think they are.
Right.
So, and I can be labeled naive at times. It happens. But I think a skilled writer, again, is like a skilled actor. You would never know that there's anything amiss unless you go digging. And most people don't dig.
You talked about AI briefly. Explain how that's changed the field of writing and possibly how it could be in the future.
I tell you, Mike, this is, it's so new that I don't think it's had a huge effect now. I think it's going to, especially on the indie market, because as I said, I think there are authors out there. And again, I don't even know if they're like real authors, But all you need to do is put a prompt in AI and it will come up with a chapter for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just keep prompting the chapters. And then you have to go through them because AI is not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
It makes mistakes. It's repetitive, depending on which program you're using. But it's so close. It's so close. Colleges, I know they're going to have a very difficult time figuring out who wrote what when it comes to essays or papers because AI is getting that good that it's it's going to be very easy. People aren't going to have to hire a Ruthy to write their English paper for them. They can just poke it into AI. And as I said, depending on which AI you're using, they all come at it from a slightly different angle, and they're all growing exponentially month by month
Mm-hmm.
in their accuracy and their fluidity of being able to just spin off words and sentences and the one thing that's not good at yet is humor, but I'm pretty sure that that will come because you know what? Let me just say this, and I don't know, I posted this on Facebook. So for Facebook's AI, they took, mind you, did not purchase thousands and thousands and thousands of books from an illegal book pirating site. So this site pirated all of these books, including 70 of mine. And they missed a few, so I think they got a few doubled. Excuse me. So this site pirates books, and you try and stop them, and publishers try, everybody tries, editors try, we try, but then they just reconfigure under a different name, hide themselves on the internet, and until somebody else reports that, oh, your books are on this site, and then you go and ask them to take it down, and they put them back up under a different site. So I don't know if there's any way around that at this point. At this point, it doesn't seem to be. But so you've got AI, ChatGPT, and Facebook
Mm-hmm.
AI both use this service to take books to generate into their AI so their AI would have good writing skills. So they took the books that this place did not buy or pay for and put them in their program, which they're not going to reproduce. So under a technicality, they don't necessarily have to buy or pay for them, but they took them from somebody who didn't buy or pay for them.
Mm-hmm.
So sleight of hand. And we're talking people worth billions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're looking at that, and if you're looking at, there were 70,000 books that they took. 70,000 books. Do the math. If each book is $5,000, or I'm sorry, $5. $5 for a digital book, a digital copy. $5 times 70,000. So you've got $350,000.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that those billionaires couldn't have come up with that. No. Sleight of hand. Until their employees were uncomfortable with the idea that they were using this to feed into the AI programs,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not purchased work. But there you go. And there's lawsuits alleging, that this was stolen property, that they shouldn't have done it. I don't know how those will come out. They won't affect me because the publishers, if there is any payout, will get the money back.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at that. So AI is building its skills on the backs of people that are working every day to write content. And there you go. And the New York Times had sued, gosh, a year ago, 18 months ago. I don't mean to go off on AI, but
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about it. So you get this extra little Ruthy informational saga. The New York Times had sued, gosh, I can't remember which one it was, but because their content was being taken so that AI would be smart about certain things going on. And they're like, well, we're not reprinting it. We're just using it. And they're like, yeah, but that's not fair. We wrote it. Our reporters and our opinion people, they wrote it. And they're like, well, we're still using it. We're not reprinting it. It's legal. And under the law, it is under some funny little corner of the law that says, oh no, as long as they're not reprinting it, they can take your information and utilize it to build their AI models to put you out of business. So there you go.
Oh.
Come on. You know what? We lived through the whole Kodak thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I watched so many of friends and family have to go and train people in Mexico how to do their job so they could take their job. So this is not like the first thing. What goes around comes around, and things happen. So AI, I think still right now, most programs that I'm aware of, you can still tell that it's AI
Mm-hmm.
because it's a little too flowery,
Mm-hmm.
a little too repetitive, but it won't be soon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, especially if they're, flooding in 70,000 books from people, the algorithms for the AI will look at that and be able to put together how things should go very quickly, very quickly. The brats.
Right. Well, what? Oh, what was I going to ask? Have you ever, when you were becoming up and coming as a writer, did you ever consider like being a journalist, being a nonfiction, or a writer for a newspaper or anything, or was it always the novels?
Well, so I never considered being a journalist,
Mm-hmm.
although I did like journalism in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I helped run the Hilton newspaper in high school, and that was lots of fun. I always liked telling stories. I like reading stories, but I also like, kind of delving into stories of the day, not just politics, but things that are going on that maybe seem right or wrong. So I've always had that interest and a huge interest in education that, I think has been one of my mainstays for writing for newspapers in opinion columns over the years, but nobody reads those anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole different thing. So I enjoy writing all of that. I love telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like my difference between cooking and baking.
Mm-hmm.
I cook because I have family and I need to cook and I like coming up with cool things, but I love baking and creating things
Mm-hmm.
for people to enjoy, whether it's at the farm or, party, family, heises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whichever way.
Right. We are the recipients of a lot of that stuff.
This is a good thing. It's a good thing.
What's your writing routine like throughout the day or the week? Because I know you're an early riser. Like, when do you get your writing in?
So my writing goes first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So generally between, I would say like 5:30 and 7:30 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the winter, I can come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I am working on a full proposal for this new series. So I had to come up with a query letter. I had to come up with a new bio. I had to come up with a full synopsis, which I did not have to write for those mysteries. So I'm taking myself back to school with this one. And the full proposal, all the chapters. And but I'm in the middle of two different books right now. One is to finish up my Wishing Bridge series that has been so incredibly popular. And so Ben's story, Saving Grace in Wishing Bridge, will come out this fall. And in the meantime, I will be marketing this new series that's set in Pennsylvania and is, again, I love to write prodigals, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Those people that, come back for whatever reasons, and why their prodigals can vary greatly from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
And the ripples that they make by coming back are as, just like in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
are as big as the ripples they made by going away. So those, so that's a delightful new series coming up
Mm-hmm.
that I can't say too much about yet. I want to get it sold,
Right.
and but it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's making me smile just working on it.
I know, I can tell.
Yeah, it's fun.
Tell me a little bit about the time and effort it takes to go into a proposal you've been mentioning.
So a full proposal like this takes, gosh, I would say you're talking many weeks. So the full proposal requires at least the first few chapters and then an overview of what the whole series will be like, a little bit about books 2 and 3 and 4, however many you're proposing. Then your synopsis on the first one. But then again, part of that, it goes into that overview, the arch of the entire series, how you want things to start at this point and go over the bridge to get to that point. Sorry, microphone. Um, and so it depends, because when I'm doing a new series, I find that I generally write the first few chapters, and that's what teaches me what my people are going to be like. So then I go back and I rewrite those chapters based on what I now know they're going to be like. And those are the chapters that get polished and sent in.
Okay.
So the first few chapters are probably what other people would do if they're doing a storyboard, or if they're doing, chapter by chapter little verses to get themselves through, or if they're plotting everything out. Because I don't do that, I really have to know those characters very well, because I want them to react appropriately to whatever happens based on what kind of background I'm giving them, what kind of history. And that's important. But I kind of keep just all of that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take notes on it. I think actually writing those first chapters is my note taking. And once I get through that, I'm like, okay, wait, I want to move this here. I want to put that there. And if she's going to do this here, I've got to have her do something back here that's going to lead the reader into this and say, girl, what were you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you just do that? Or, well, of course you're going to do that. That makes sense. So that's my methodology, which is probably different from others. But then from that point on, as I write chapters, each morning when I get up, I go back and I reread what I had written the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I edit that, fix it, trim it up, find some of the crazy multiple times I use certain words, ubiquitously,
Right.
and straighten it all out. And then I move into whatever I'm writing for that day, because now it's a natural feed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a number of writers that I like who do that same kind of thing, because the flow works,
Mm-hmm.
because you've just fixed what you've done the day before. You're ready to move into the next scene, and that scene is going to flow because you came at it right out of the scene before.
Mm-hmm.
But every now and again, I have to go back and add scenes in, take scenes out, because I'll be like, okay, that didn't work. That didn't. And there was one, ask me if I have a regret.
What's your one regret?
This is so funny because it's in the Wishing Bridge series. And the first 2 books were contracted by Waterfall Press, which was a division of Amazon. At the end of the second book, they discontinued that imprint. So I put the rest of the books out on my own, and they're wonderful. But in that second book, oh my stars, this wonderful, wonderful editor, Faith Ross, I believe it was, who said to me, I don't really think this fire needs to be here. I don't see what the point is about that. And in my head, I was thinking, oh no, I can use that having had that fire, that family burning out of their house kind of thing. I'll use it in the next book. Nope, didn't. Never used it again. Never needed it. Should have dumped it when she told me to. And she was very nice about it. But I thought, okay, that was just dumb, because I try not to leave things hanging that don't have an organic ending. So I could have, like later on in the books, said something about, that house that burned or that family. But now it's gratuitous. It's just me covering my tracks and not wanting them to actually be in there because there's no reason for them to be in there. So didn't have to burn the house down. That's all I'm saying. Didn't have to do it. Meant nothing to anyone.
You mentioned marketing. How do you market a book? I mean, do you do it yourself, or do you have others that do it for you,
So,
publishers? Or I don't. How does that work?
well, if you're working with a publisher, they're going to help with a lot of the marketing. And then it's going to be in bookstores or in retail stores. But that's becoming difficult, Mike, because if you've walked through a Barnes and Noble lately, you'll notice that there's a whole lot of that store that is not books. You've got a whole magazine wall. You've got an entire toy wall, an entire toy section, a puzzle section, a game section, and STEM games. So they're going for a more educational kind of look in that. But when you look at the book racks, quite often, instead of the books being spine out so that you see a whole bunch of books, they are one book set there so you see it and it's taking up this much space instead of 6 of those books taking up this much space. And that's a money, a dollars and cents problem that bookstores are having because books are expensive. I just got a note from Amazon today telling me that we're sorry, but we have to change your royalty rates on your published paperback. So anything print. All of my independent books are done in paperback and in virtual, in ebooks. So Kindle or Nook, whatever. But they need to change that. They're taking 10% off of that because they said that the costs for everything are going up. Unless, Mike, unless your book, you've got it out there for over, I think I might mess this up, for over $10.99. So if you price your book at $9.99, you're going to lose 10% royalties. If you price your book at $10.99, you get bumped back up to that, but you may lose sales. Is this water for me?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Take a sip.
So that's interesting. And I have found, this is just another little funny thing that's gone on the past couple of years. My friends at Amazon, again, another billionaire, are taking their fair share plus, but also they're not giving authors the spin or the discoverability that they used to, because they are only doing that if you're paying for advertising through Amazon. Because obviously now Jeff Bezos is basically out of it, but there's other billionaires in it. Obviously, they need that extra money from the author's advertising. So if somebody technically goes and looks for my book, if they look for Ruth Logan Herne, they're going to first get a bar that says all these books are books like Ruth Logan Herne. And those are all advertised books. And then I may come in someplace like 5 books down the list, and it may be just one of my books. And if you click on that, you will go to that book, but you're going to get another bar that are going to say, if you like this, then you might like this. And those are going to be all across the top, probably for less money. So that's kind of like one of those kicks in the head, because they are, and they know it, the only game in town for doing virtual books. There you go.
Did not know that. Who does your covers?
If it's a book published with a publisher, they do them. If it's one that I've gotten back, or the 4 Wishing Bridge books that we've put out since, or any of my other independent works, Beth Jameson, that wonderful daughter of mine, never forgotten. Beth does the graphics, the covers, and the editing, and she is wonderful. I cannot sing her praises enough. She kind of started doing this when she was like an older teenager, reading my work as I was, playing around with things. And I sucked, by the way. I'm not going to lie. They were terrible. But she kind of cut her teeth on that. And now she works for me and for several other authors. She does independent editing and graphics and covers. And if you look, the first two covers for the Wishing Bridge series, Welcome to Wishing Bridge and At Home in Wishing Bridge, were done by Waterfall Press
Okay.
and Amazon. And they're beautiful. They were wonderful to work with. So then Beth and I got together to figure out how we wanted to go with. The first two have a woman on the cover. So every other one is going to have a woman, the heroine, on the cover. But then we had to figure out the setting. So then we go into iStock or what are the other ones? Like Unsplash is free. iStock and the other ones are all I pay, and then I get to use the pictures. So we go through them. Finding the right person is the trick. Finding the right person with the right background. But now photographers have gotten better at this, or gotten more computer savvy, because you'll find more pictures of people that you can use on book covers with just a plain background. Also, software has been developed now that can erase the background totally. 5, 6, 7 years ago, that didn't exist. You had to go in and gently, kind of cut out with, I don't know what you would use, but to get that image away from the background. Not anymore. One click of the button, it's gone. You've got that person. So she does an amazing job. So she'll be doing the cover for Saving Grace in Wishing Bridge. One of the prettiest sets she did for me was a series that I got back the rights to from Love Inspired. Thank you, Love Inspired. And it is set down in Canandaigua Lake, but it's called Grace Haven. So I kind of disguised the area as a fictional place, but it's really Canandaigua. And beautiful. 4 brides on the covers, stunning covers. People love it. The covers sell those books, which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, no, she's and she's all self-taught. She didn't take any of this in college. None of it. She's self-taught herself, all the things. And don't you find that quite often is the best way to do things?
It sure is.
You just start someplace and keep going, and when you get good, you keep going and get better.
Learn by doing.
Exactly.
If no one's read any of your books, what book would you recommend that novice reader to pick up and read?
Oh my gosh. There's I'm going to be honest, there are several, depending on what genre you're looking at. I would say if you're looking at my cowboy series, grab Back in the Saddle. Back in the Saddle is an amazing book, beloved. Men and women both love it. It is the start of the Stafford Ranch series, the Double S Ranch. And it's a great family, crazy family, set out in Washington State. So I got to do a little exploring out there, check out how different it is. And interestingly, Washington State runs into the same thing we do here in New York, whereas
Texas?
the majority of the state is filled with normal, wonderful, funny, salt of the earth, race that knows Joseph people. And then you get to the coast and you're like, what happened? Who flipped the switch? Because it's so different, so different. And you see that with multiple states. And here in New York, we face the same thing, because when you get away from New York City at all, you tend to find more and more people who are just regular folks.
True.
Getting through, making money, paying bills, raising families, running farms, running businesses, teaching kids, coaching. So, but it's amazing how different that can be. So your setting in a book is a huge thing. So setting those books out in Washington State was so much fun, because you've got a great Native American culture there. You've got the Kittitas Valley there between the mountains, where they realized that by using river water, they could create amazing orchards.
Mm-hmm.
So all that Washington State fruit came from things that happened in the early 20th century when they were realizing, wait a minute, this is really fertile land. We've got all this water. How about we start utilizing it? And they kind of grew their own empires when it comes to different industries.
Mm-hmm.
And so very interesting stuff. But that book is a great one. Welcome to Wishing Bridge.
Okay.
Wonderful story. Opens the Wishing Bridge series. And when they bought that book, the editor said to me, I was reading this book, and it was the 4th of July, and I was in Manhattan, and I was slated to go over to the Hudson River to see the amazing fireworks show.
Mm-hmm.
I never went. I could not put your proposal down. I sat there and thought, I have to have this book, this series. And she said, you rooked me out of fireworks,
Mm-hmm.
but I am so glad that you are going to sell us this series.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a wonderful thing. So independent books. Oh my gosh, Mike, if people are looking for a great read, More Than a Promise, which is a funny, beautiful book about a very unlikely modern day couple who falling in love accidentally
Mm-hmm.
because he's got 3 very naughty boys and she's the artsy, more liberal type person living next door. These 3 hooligans, and she's going to probably have to kill them all just to give herself some peace. But her sensibilities won't let her do that.
Mm-hmm.
So she marries their father instead. It is a great story, and people just love it. But if somebody were looking for something that's more thought provoking, more insightful into modern day problems, Refuge of the Heart, which is a beautiful story of a Chechen refugee here from Russia, brought over by amazing means and a church and a priest that helped oversee it to get her here. What she endured and what she has to face here in America, where nothing she's learned. She was a doctor overseas. Here she's nothing. So she goes back to nursing school. She's living penny to penny in an area in Rochester. So it's a local book too. So it really touches the reader. Going to classes there at the U of R and doing her nursing clinicals and living life on such a meager existence, but with the hope of freedom, the hope of never having to deal with Russian arms again, with horrible conditions, with evil men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a book that has won awards and been in lots of book clubs across the country. And I'm glad that it has touched many hearts because it's that kind of story.
When people do exercising, they get the endorphins from running or whatever. What feeling do you get when you're in the process of writing? What drives you?
Oh, so after I kick people in the head? Okay, after that. All right. No, I love writing. So honestly, that is very similar. If I mess something up, then going back, I'm like, oh, you knew better than that. You knew it when you were doing it. But no, I'm very excited. I love creating stories. It makes me happy. And I don't even mind going back and fixing. I don't mind editing. That just all comes along with it. I find that even though I tend to be gregarious, not in an ubiquitous fashion,
I got to go to Siri. What does gregarious mean?
talks too much.
Okay.
So that's while I love talking with people about writing, do not love book signings, those kinds of things where I'm put in the center of attention. I would rather be home, writing stories, working in the garden, getting dirty knees, watering 4,000 mums. And it's not because I don't like people, because I do. I don't like being the center of all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it's fine. You do it because you have to do it sometimes. But that would be the part where I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cringy. Let me just write books. I know what I'm good at.
Was there ever a book that really drained you? You talk about persevering and all that.
I'm going to be honest. No. I mean, I will say that at certain times it's, I have to really push to stay on task
Mm-hmm.
because, as a mother and a grandmother and working with kids, and you get to holiday time and it gets crazy. You get to June.
Mm-hmm.
June always gets crazy. But then I think about it as, girl, the entire world goes to work every single stinking day. Do your work,
Mm-hmm.
do your job. Because, and that's why I get up so early,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can do that. Because once you're in the mix of the day with a big family and a farm and one of those husband things, there's so many things that are going to pull your attention away.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get a couple thousand words written that morning, I'm golden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fret about it, because if you're writing a couple thousand words a day, even 1,000 words a day, think of that. That's 365,000 words a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
And if you figure in editing time, figure it's 4 books in editing time. When you're doing that, I think you're actually treating your business like a job. You're looking at it and wanting to do your best, get your best out of it. But then I still have the grace of having my family life when I need it. I know so many authors who they'll procrastinate. And then the last 3 weeks, they go into a hiding mode and hide in the basement, and they're writing their book and they're working, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I would probably shoot somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm not even kidding. I cannot do that. My brain would be fried. I would be like, no, this is terrible. Too much like work. But again, to each their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some people that works. They kind of like that stress. And not me. I like weaving my stories. I think I'm pretty much a turtle,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets a lot of books done. So I'm okay with being that kind of a turtle. I'm just a turtle who doesn't take days off and doesn't quit. So,
It's a great mantra to live by. I'm
right?
going to leave the final thoughts to you. Any question or thoughts I didn't elicit from you that
Oh,
you'd
Mike,
like
don't
to
ask
add?
me to think. It's late afternoon
You've done a
now.
lot of thinking and a lot of explaining and used a lot of words to do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I do. I have that skill. It's like one of my superpowers.
What's one thing that maybe people don't know about Ruthy?
Oh my gosh.
Logan Herne, that you think they should know, or do you want to keep it that secret?
No, you know what? I honestly, between writing and the farm,
Mm-hmm.
I think my days for secrets are over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, what do I have to be secret about at this point? When you live in a community, a small community, and you have people, thousands of people come to your farm every fall, there's very little that's secret.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that I would say that I hope that what I do and what I say comes through as sincere, whether I'm writing about politics or about change or about families, about life, about death. These are very serious subjects, and we all go through them. Our hearts and souls get bogged down by things so often, so often. And we have to be able to look deep within ourselves and know that if things are bad, they will get better.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to know that. And I mean, I wish everybody were a person of deep faith, but if you're not, I promise you, things will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this and can say that and can promise that because they do. because I've lived long enough on this planet to know they do. And that people, when they suffer from either mental illness or depression or any kind of agonizing things like that, whether it's from grief or from just not liking yourself, there's lots about you to like, lots about you to celebrate, lots about you to enjoy throughout, whatever life you have, because nothing that's going on outside of us is that important that we lose our faith in ourselves and God. And I think those are things that, if I were talking to people and saying, I hope this is what you'll think, and it comes back to that Irma Bombeck quote that I have at home, that I post every now and again because I love it. When I stand before God at the end of my days, I want to be able to look at him and say, I used every bit of talent that you gave me. And I think if we're doing that, we're okay.
Well, Ruth Logan Herne, thank you for sharing your talent with me.
Coach, it's always a pleasure.
We went from heart to heart with Herne to revisions with
There
Ruthy.
you go. Everything needs a revision, including most men.
Exactly. And again, it's great to get to know more of you. And I'm looking forward to picking out one of those books.
There you go.
Maybe it'll be a Father's Day gift.
Oh, Mike, you know what? Oh, I think there's probably a copy of that Back in the Saddle coming your way.
Carla likes listening to the podcasts.
Oh, the Audibles, yes.
Right.
Yes, no, the Audibles are amazing.
Oh, no, she likes to listen to the podcast. So
to listen to the podcast.
She's getting the gift idea now.
I see.
And I like listening to audiobooks.
Right over my head.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, babe.
Right.
Love ya.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find